Hey there, Balanced Lady Bosses. Welcome to another episode of the Balanced Lady Boss Show. Today, I am bringing to the stage and to your hearing one of my friends and colleagues, not just in the space of the IT and digital transformation area, but just in total girl boss, mom, wife, doing all the things, and highly respected person that I have come to know. And I think we also share a common thread in moving back to Jamaica because we wanted to make a difference, not just for ourselves, but also impact the country and the lives of the Jamaican people. And so I'd love for you to join me in welcoming Nadeen Matthews-Blair, who is a C-suite executive at one of, I think it's the #1 bank in the country, and plays many roles in the space of corporate. And of course, you know, here on the show, we focus on boardroom, bedroom, and bliss. And we're going to find out how Nadeen is bossing it in the other two areas, because we know she's a boss in the boardroom, but how to navigate to the other two parts. So welcome, Nadeen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Stacey, for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Excellent, excellent. So our talk today is going to start off in boardroom, because I think one of the things that a lot of women that listen to the show look for is, you know, well, what is this person about? What was their career journey? How did they end up where they are? Did Nadeen wake up one day and say, yes, I am going to be living in Jamaica and sitting in a gold building, literally the building is gold, and doing all things financial institution wise? You know, was that like the big dream, or was this a pivot? You know, how did you arrive at the position that you're in now, and what's that like? What's that experience like?
So it's funny that you should ask if that was a pivot, Stacey, because if I go back to my high school days, before going to high school, I actually applied for Performing Arts High School and Math and Science High School. So LaGuardia High School, I was accepted for voice. And then I was also accepted to Stuyvesant High School, the Math and Science High School. And my parents were like, no, we're not going to do this performing arts thing. So there probably ended my chance of becoming the next Beyonce. But parents obviously play a role in guiding you, and so I was on that path. So I've been this left brain, right brain person from inception. After graduating from high school, I went on to attend Binghamton University, a state university in New York. Yes. And after that, I started my career in banking. And I never really had an aspiration to be in banking. I wanted to be a history major initially. And then my father said, how about accounting? And then I said, no, I don't think accounting is for me. So I settled on financial economics. And then what's interesting was I ended up doing an adjunct in finance and accounting, and loved accounting, especially managerial accounting. So I ended up at JP Chase. It was Chase at the time, and I started as a credit analyst. It was a management training program. And I spent 4 months training in Manhattan, and then I was assigned to the Bronx Westchester office. And that I would characterize as my first professional disappointment, because I wanted to be in Manhattan.
I want to be in the city.
You know, but I guess because I had lived in the Bronx my entire life since leaving Jamaica, they saw a connection. And that disappointment ended up being actually one of the best things that could have happened to me. Because in that office, I was surrounded by this team of men who were super supportive, including one Irish 50-odd-year-old man, Eamon Quinn, who took me under his wings and showed me the ropes of banking and relationship management. And because of that support, I was one of the first persons in my class of 60 to be promoted to AVP. So sometimes a disappointment is really a setup for something that God had destined for you. And I encourage women to take every disappointment with a grain of salt and figure out, how do I make the best of this situation? Because every setback is a setup for a comeback.
Oh, I love that.
4 amazing years at JP Morgan Chase, but I decided that I wanted a multinational career, and I didn't know what that was at 25, but that's what I wanted. And everyone thought I was crazy. What? You have a good job and you're going to leave that, take 2 years off, go and pursue your MBA. But I wanted a multinational career. Mm-hmm. And so I took 2 years off. I went and pursued my MBA at Wharton. After that, I was a consultant at McKinsey & Company, which was an amazing experience. I was able to work with businesses in many industries, multiple countries. But after a time, I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And so I wanted to take the next step. I didn't know what that was going to be. And sometimes there is divine intervention. I had always wondered what it would be like to come back to Jamaica. I left when I was 10 years old. And a friend of mine, who fast forward today happens to be my husband, actually sent my resume to 4 CEOs in Jamaica. And Patrick Hilton, my now boss, called me the very same day, and the rest, as they say, is history. That was in November 2009, February of 2010. I joined NCB as the head of strategy. So I've been here 10 years, my longest professional stint. And in that time, I've had many opportunities, an amazing experience. I started as the head of strategy. Today, I wear the hat of Chief Digital and Marketing Officer. So in that capacity, I'm responsible for digital transformation, enterprise information management, and marketing and communications. And then I'm also CEO of the NCB Foundation. So that's been my journey so far, and it continues.
Guys, I don't know how many of you are going to watch the actual YouTube on this when it finally drops, but she's just talking about it like, it's a sunny day outside and I'm in the middle of, yes, I'm Chief Digital Officer, and that means I do all these things and I'm responsible for billions of dollars, la, 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 you dropped so many gems just now, Nadeen, because I love when you talk about that failure being a setup, that disappointment, not failure, that disappointment being a setup for something greater. And you often hear a lot of successful persons, whether it's entrepreneurs or celebrities, they talk about that big disappointment. Like I remember on LinkedIn recently, The Rock posted something where he got cut from professional football and or baseball, one of them. And it just was the beginning of his career, so we probably would have never known The Rock the way we know him now had he not had that disappointment, and so that's huge, because so many of us, you just feel so much stress and anxiety and sometimes depression when you get these disappointments in your career journey, where you're sure that this is the office I was supposed to be in, or I'm sure that this is the job I'm supposed to get, and what am I going to do now that I didn't get it, kind of thing. So that was really, really insightful. And I really love the part where you talk about you wanted to be a multinational, you wanted to work with a multinational company, you wanted to be a multinational corporate person. And what that actually looked like was not sending out your resume around the world, but taking a step towards your education, furthering your abilities so that you could, fine tune what does that look like. And even after kind of committing to that journey of taking time off, which not really, because a master's degree is nothing close to time. You then moved into now, all right, so what am I going to do? And for many of us, especially women, we like to know the plan, We like to know that this is the next step. And then I'm a strategic planner. So it's even like worse, like every day, that's what I do. Every day I work on the plan. Right. Yeah. So that's really insightful to see that you took a not so traditional route, and you are now sitting in a job that has created this multinational experience for you, right? Or that you have created this multinational experience from. So I kudos to you, and kudos for you to be able to say it with such grace.
Thank you.
I love it. Okay, all right. So that sounds like, real boss. You mentioned the break. When you decided to take that transition into school, was there any part of you that wondered, am I sacrificing or am I committing career suicide by kind of stepping off the ladder in order to figure it out or to get to the next rung, so to speak?
At 25, you're young and you're braver. I think we get a lot less brave as we get older, but at the time I had no doubt that I had to do this in order to just create a platform. Even though I didn't know what the next job would be after that, I knew it would create a platform for me to have the flexibility to do many things. Okay. And that's what I wanted. The biggest decision I actually made at the time was to exit a relationship that was not a supportive one.
Okay.
So because, again, JP Morgan Chase was viewed as a big job, a good job, why was I moving away to go and better myself and do even more? And I had to exit that relationship, and it's because I tell women this all the time. Ambitious women have two choices. They either need a supportive partner or no partner at all. It just doesn't work if there's someone that's constantly questioning your choices or whether you're committed enough to your family. It just won't work. And so after that, I spent a long time being single and focusing on my career, and was quite happy with that. And that was a specific choice that I made at that time.
Wow. You're my second interview in the last 2 weeks that it was a very specific choice for that time period. I never know nothing about that choice when I was for me, it was just, I was going down the road of, okay, so you have to have the man and you have to have the thing, and like everything have to bungle on while you're doing the work thing, So I definitely appreciate the perspective of it being a deliberate choice. And I'm actually happy that you raised that, because we can now shift the conversation into bedroom, which is really about the intimate relationships. And by far, the number one thing when I do my workshops that comes up, undoubtedly, I start my workshops with women for specifically around Balanced Lady Boss. I start my workshops with an assessment. And undoubtedly, I would say 90% of those assessments always come back with a longing or a yearning in the space of love and relationships. And these are always A-type, high-performing women that are, about the success and holding it down, probably 10 things they're holding down, some with children. And the challenge that they experience is kind of going back to what you're saying. It's about having that supportive partner or none at all. Some have none and they're like, God, I really, really want this, and I can't seem to figure out how to make it work. Mm-hmm. And some have a partner and it's either that they're not supportive and women are feeling guilty about it, or they're very supportive and women are feeling guilty about it, right? So I thought it was really important for all of us to hear from different women in terms of, what works for you. What was it that had you choose your current partner, because you knew what you were not looking for because you stepped away from that, right? So how did you go about, well, he was your friend, you said, no, husband. Yes. Right? So how did you go about choosing, he sent you maybe the job, I don't know. What was it?
So like you said, I figured out early that it wasn't gonna work to not have a partner who wasn't supportive, because that relationship actually took an emotional toll on me every single day. And I didn't want to have that feeling ever again. And so in my relationships subsequent to that, and I didn't have any serious relationships, just dating, there were things that I would not do. So I would not position myself as someone that would become a homemaker or cook your meals every night. And this is not saying that there's anything wrong with that. It's about just realizing the things that make you happy. Because I know many professional women who love cooking. If you love it, you should do it, because that's self-care. But if you don't love it and it's becoming a burden as you pursue your career, then you shouldn't do it, or you should find an alternative. So very early in our relationship or any dating situation, I just made that clear. I can cook, but it's just not something that I do every day. And my husband was the first one to cook. He made me upscale. He's very proud of that. He attributes that to why he, hooked me. And I'm like, well, and I love food, and I have no problem with that story. There is truth in it. He cooked first. And my husband is busy. He transitioned from corporate life to entrepreneurial life recently, but he never makes me feel guilty about traveling. He steps up and takes charge of the home and our children. We have support. I have my mother-in-law living with us, God bless her. And we have a housekeeper that helps a lot. And it's important for your partner to be supportive of having a tribe, especially if both of you work. But the single most important thing is that there's always, collaboration, an agreement, and an understanding that we have to make something work, because I should not be the one sacrificing all the time, simply because I'm the woman in the relationship. And in fact, now with remote school and both our children being home, he's an entrepreneur. He has more flexibility. So he's the one that's doing the majority of the daytime supporting of them. I'm the one on the night shift in terms of getting homework done, bedtime, and I get up earlier than him, and that's the balance. But there has to be that commitment that you guys are in it together.
Yeah, no, that's so good. Oh, yes. I mean, and I'm feeling it more from a place of I get it, I have it now than check me 2 years ago. I was one of the women like, oh my God. Where is the man, Lord? I keep praying,
Yeah.
So a couple of really great points there. Talking about not being the person to have to do the sacrificing all the time. Meaning it doesn't mean that it's a balancing act. At some points you sacrifice, at some points he sacrifices. It's not like we're trying to offload everything and say,
Exactly.
I'm a woman, hear me roar, you go over there and do that stuff, and I'll, so really balancing that sacrificing of yourself and your time. And then the second part is being committed, because I think that commitment shows up in a number of ways. I mean, we're talking about it here in the context of being able to navigate your boardroom space and support your family and having that partner there. But commitment shows up in so many other ways, whether it is in the relationship part of things, being committed to making the relationship work, being committed to having time for each other, being committed to whatever agreements you make, so it doesn't, as you are with one thing, so you are with everything in the relationship. And choosing a partner that is a ready man that will cook the oxtail first is what you want. That's the meat of the matter, right? Is what you want. I'm just having a whole bunch of puns today. I'm sorry. I it's Friday. Okay, so talk to me about your children, because I do follow you on social media, and there are two things that you post about in your personal life, and one of them is talking about your partner, not necessarily directly speaking about him. Sometimes they do, but really more talking about just the concept of what it really makes good intimate partnership, intimate love relationships, which I really admire, by the way. I look out for those posts. And then you talk about your girls. Like, I just love that, because I have two girls as well. Well, three now, because I have a bonus girl. And
Okay.
it's just quite, the experience with them has been quite dynamic and interesting as we move through the different stages of raising children. I now have an 11, 13, and 16-year-old. So that nice part that you experiencing, I've graduated.
Yes, yes, I'm not ready for it.
I've graduated. So what has that been like in terms of what, when you decided that you were going to welcome children into the world, and were you concerned about how it was going to affect your work, or did you kind of have a vision in your mind of what that was going to look like?
I had a vision of what it was going to be like, which is nothing like that vision was, because children, it's just daily uncertainty. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't concerned about it affecting my work, because I was ready. Mm-hmm. And I was willing to do whatever it would take to make that work. And I am in a very supportive environment at work. I have an amazing boss, or amazing bosses, because I report to two different bosses now. And at JP Morgan Chase, it was the same thing. Two amazing bosses, and that know that I will deliver. And so there's no micromanaging. So if I have to be out of the office because my daughter is sick, that is okay. Or I need to be home. And this was pre-COVID, so being home was not a thing. I even was able to work for part of the time overseas during my pregnancy as a result of that flexibility. So I was ready. And it's been the best gift having my two girls. Every morning I see them in bed together. They insist on sleeping together, even though we got them separate beds. They still sleep together, and I'm just like, what a blessing. And motherhood has been a great role, and it changes you, because I would say my purpose now is all around how can I be the best for them. And that helps to put a lot of things in perspective, and help to shape the various trade-offs that I make. At the end of the day, am I being the best I can be for them? But motherhood, it's not a game. It's not a game, and you're never really ready, but it's a really, really, really rewarding experience.
Yes. I think I'm actually going to do a master class on mothering teenage girls.
I'm gonna watch it. Sign me up.
Because I fear that there hasn't really been enough insight placed on that. And when you're learning on the go,
yes,
about it not being a game. Oh, honey child, I'm over here in Major League Golf world some days, and then other days I'm required to coach a football team, and then it's just the dynamics of it. And then each girl goes through her transition to womanhood very differently.
Yes.
So you don't know what teenager you're going to wake up with tomorrow.
It's so important, Stacey, because I think one of the things I realized, and this is why the program is important, that masterclass is important. Women haven't historically spoken enough about certain things. I guess things that we think are unmentionable.
Yes.
So as much as I read all the what to expect when you're expecting and all of these things, there was nothing documented about the messy post-pregnancy stuff.
Yes.
The bodily fluids, the random pains, the postpartum depression, which I'm really happy that there is a lot of discussion about these days. The breastfeeding process, yes, and how challenging that can be.
Yes.
And so all of this is really important, because when as a woman you think that you're the only one dealing with this struggle, it's much different than when you realize that this is quite normal.
Yes. Yes.
And so it's really important that as women we do that more for each other.
No, you're spot on, Nadeen, and I'm so glad you essentially just kind of endorse the conversations that are a part of this community, because my sister just had a baby and she's a doctor, right? So she was seeing women that had just had babies before she had her own, but when it is you, yes, it's a very different experience. It's a whole different set of neurons kicking in, and you need the support of the community. You need to know that it's normal. You need to know that, okay, baby's going to be up crying sometimes, and you may have a baby that stays up all night.
Oh, yeah.
You might have that for months and you feel like, no, something is definitely wrong. But no, there are lots of women that's happening to, and you're not crazy and you're not a bad mother. And, like just those kind of things to help us help each other, So,
yeah. Yes.
Spot on. Okay, I love that. Now, do you actually have to negotiate with them around work?
No. Well, take remote working. Well, right now for this interview, I put a sign on the door and I went, Mommy's going to be in an interview. But other than times like this, they just come upstairs. They've come upstairs with me in a work meeting. They'll shout out, come downstairs, Mommy! So in the beginning, when all of this happened, it was crazy, and it was kind of like apologizing all the time. I think I made a post about this on Instagram where in my mind I asked the question, do I want this to be what they remember of this period? Mommy upstairs, mommy's off limits, they can't come in. So I let them come in. If I have to turn off my camera, I do that. My youngest daughter, her desk is in here. Bunch of things are in here because when she wants to change scenery when she studies, I let her come up. So they appreciate and understand that mommy works. And the good thing is they see they go to Mona Prep, and interestingly enough, there's so many dads that do the drop-offs. So they're very used to this concept of daddies, including mine, play a role.
Yes.
And mommies work too. So I'm thrilled that is the concept that they're growing up with. Mommies and daddies work, and that's just quite a normal thing. And I know that at nighttime, mommy's gonna read bedtime stories, cuddle up with us, make jokes, take silly videos, and we have that constant. But in the day, she goes to work. I still have access to her, and that's fine.
I miss cuddling up and reading bedtime stories.
Cuddling is the best.
I miss that. I have one that will allow me to cuddle from time to time now.
It's like maybe.
Yeah. Stories gone through the door. And I actually saw it happening. That's the funny part, is that I saw it happen. It stopped after, because I used to read to both of them.
Yes.
Because that was crazy. It's simpler, and we like similar things. So the books and that kind of stuff, and then eventually my oldest daughter would be like, can you go do that somewhere else with just Victoria? Like trying to figure out. And then Victoria and we start, like, she wanted to maybe read books that I was reading that were not necessarily kiddie books, that were more like, I'm reading something by Oprah, What I Know for Sure. And she's like, okay, let's read that. And I'm thinking to myself, you want to read What I Know for Sure? You're like 9, like, but she would want to do that. And eventually it was like, oh, I can read on my own.
Yes.
And I was like, no, please, please, this is our time, So enjoy it. I really just love it. I get to do it again because I'm getting nieces and nephews and things. So I'm looking forward to transitioning over to be able to do that with them, so yeah. Absolutely. Now, how do you take care of you in all of this, in all of the momming, all the in between the bedtime stories and the homework and your very high profile role, and your relationship? How do you take care of you and your partner? What is your bliss space?
Yeah, I am very intentional about sleep. I haven't always been. I used to be proud of being able to go hard in business school, 18, 19, 20-hour days. Same thing when I was at McKinsey. And I would say early in my career at NCB, not a regular thing, but on occasion, if something important was happening. And then as you get older, that just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And I had to start prioritizing sleep to have the level of clarity that I needed just based on where I am, because I'm not a doer anymore. I also have to be able to think clearly, think strategically, be able to play a role in inventing the future for the organization. And so I had to become a lot more intentional about sleep. I get up early because I'm a morning person and it's not a big deal. So I'm up by 4 a.m. Every day except Saturday and Sunday. And in the morning, the first thing I do is pray. I woke up another day.
Yes.
And then I asked God for help in showing up how I want to be that day. Kind, supportive, and any issues or challenges that are weighing on me. I exercise, not every day, probably a couple times a week, and then I have a standing Zoom exercise session with my mother and 2 sisters every Saturday. So that's fun. And that is totally a since COVID thing. And it's like, it's almost like we're getting together more as a result of COVID, facilitated by Zoom. And then by the time I shower and everything and I'm in my office, I redo my to-do list because it changes every day. And every day you have to reprioritize. And then I separate the big rocks from the sand.
Yes.
To make sure that I'm sufficiently focused on the things that are going to move the needle the most. Mm-hmm. It's really easy to just do the things from the top or pick out the things that are easiest because it's hard to get the will to start on the big things. So I create the big rocks list and I focus on tackling those, especially in the morning. And then I get up, I get my girls up and get them ready for school, have breakfast with them, and start my day. But in order to get enough sleep, I'm in bed by 9 o'clock, wow. 9 o'clock. And it's really only if something is happening that can make the exception, and that might extend into 11, but very rarely. I mean, I'm tired, so by 9 o'clock, I'm out. So I get good sleep. I eat well during the week. Fortunately, part of my tribe is my housekeeper. I can't do without her, and she makes vegetarian meals for me during the week. I'm not a vegetarian, but I try to minimize meat. So then on the weekends, I will have meat because it's a weekend. The kids want pizza and KFC and all of that stuff. So unfortunately, some of that happens. But I am able, fortunately, to eat pretty well during the week. And then, of course, throw in a little exercise here and there. My husband and I have date night every Friday.
Oh.
It used to be once a month on a Friday, and COVID has actually allowed us to do it every Friday. So when we were on total lockdown, we would order food and eat on the terrace. And now, as things have opened up, we make time to go out, and the kids know that that's mommy and daddy time. They're like, oh, you guys are going out again for dinner. Okay, see you later. But that's because then they know Saturday is and Sunday is all their time.
Right.
And then from a family standpoint, we're blessed to live in Jamaica. So we can go and take a quick weekend trip or just take a quick trip to a beach or something. And we prioritize that. We get away as a family at least 3 to 4 times a year. So I feel very fortunate. These aren't necessarily big trips, but I feel very fortunate to be able to do that. So that's my self-care routine. Every once in a while, I might get to a spa or something. A lot more like the things you do, Stacey. I'm like, oh yes, I want to do that, but that's not every month. But let me tell you, sleep as a starting point will do wonders. Just trust me. I want everybody to trust me on that one. Prioritize sleep.
Yes. No, thank you for that, because that's Ariana Huffington's, that was her shift into wellness, because she was very similar to you and I, because coming out of North America, you get that, oh, I only need the 4 or 5 hours. Like,
yes.
I need, and you're just like on it, delivering. And that's also, lack of sleep is also one of the things that is tied to breast cancer, especially my type of breast cancer that I had. But she was doing the same thing, where she was running this organization, high powered, et cetera, et cetera. And then she just one day just dropped down, hit her head under because she was tired.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's when she started the whole Thrive movement, Thrive Global. So I said, well, at least it's not just us over here, it's everybody that needs to recognize. Yeah, sleep is so important. We underestimate the power and value of it, and we have similar things. I think part of what you can access as bliss is also dependent on, your circumstances. So how old are your children, and how long can you leave them, and, like all of that. Because when my kids were younger, I certainly was not doing as much of the spying and the lengthy time away. And, I used to travel every month to go back home until COVID. I've been grounded for 8 months now, so as we got older, I was able to do more of those things because they now understood and were also wanting less of me.
Yes.
They don't need me in the same way. I mean, it's kind of strange, right? Because you think that they're older, so you don't hear the mom from downstairs when you're in meetings, but actually you hear the mom, and then they come to the door and they say, you're in another meeting while the meeting is running. And they're like, can you please put them on hold? This is an emergency, which is their emergency, not yours. It's just, it's quite interesting. So no, that's good. I like what you said about, I have to have enough clarity so I can play my part in inventing the future. What is next for you in your space of inventing the future?
So I think some of our passions intersect, Stacey, because a big part of what I'm passionate about is helping Jamaica to transform digitally, so that we can leapfrog our third world or emerging market status, whatever you want to call it. And I think that digital technology and digital skills provides a platform to do that.
Yeah.
So through my work as a chief digital officer and supporting that transformation of NCB, then on the as CEO of the NCB Foundation, we've been doing a lot of work in terms of programming to help persons upskill digitally.
Yes.
Our Level Up Grant program, which we did recently, I'm super proud of, for persons who are unemployed due to COVID, we gave them grants so that they could take short online courses. And in the course of 3 months, participants were earning a combination of $100,000 US. That's huge, by offering their services online. The NCB Icon Lab, where we're working with at-risk youth and low-income persons, again, to get those digital skills to be ready to work locally or overseas, and access and actually just be empowered to earn.
Yeah.
So that's where we're on a PSOJ committee together. I've worked with the minister in terms of some of the new economy initiatives. That's where my headspace is, doing whatever I can to play a role in Jamaica's digital transformation.
Oh, that's great. Yes, I'm very steeped in that space right now. It feels like a full-time job. I will say that has created a little less sleep for me. These past few months in my new role as president have been quite interesting and challenging. Like, I've really grown a lot. I don't know if it's showing up externally just yet, but I know that as a leader and as someone who has an interest in seeing Jamaica thrive at the level that it can,
yes,
I have really just expanded in my understanding of how critical it is for us to support that journey, even in a small way, you know. So I'm happy to be in space with you on that. I do feel better when I see your name on things because I kind of know that.
Congrats on the conference.
Oh, thank you very much. It was a massive success. It was.
Yes, it was.
All right, so we're actually at the end of our interview time. This has been so enriching for me. And the last question that I ask all my guests is if they could choose one piece of advice or one quote or word of inspiration that they would share with the community that would be helpful or that has been helpful to you in your journey, whether it's boardroom, bedroom, or bliss, what would that one thing be?
I would say be a continuous learner.
Mm.
There is a quote that I like: the illiterate of the future are not the persons who can't read and write, but are the persons who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Mm.
So I went to what some may consider a prestigious business school, but there are many things that I learned in business school that are no longer relevant. And if you are focused on the credentials behind your name and that stock knowledge from 5, 10, 15 years ago, within the context of this rapidly evolving world, then you're going to become disrupted or obsolete very quickly. And so I'm constantly learning and being open to recognizing that I don't know enough about this. I was introduced to the Conscious Leadership book by you because leadership has changed. It's not about this authoritative person anymore, authoritative male, right? All of that leadership has changed. So I had to learn that. I had to step into that, especially coming from a place of being a high-performing individual contributor.
Yes.
And so that's what I would say. Have a mindset and an understanding that you will be constantly learning, and that's part of the game. And that is both in terms of your bedroom, the boardroom, or bliss. Be open to continuous learning and you will be okay.
Oh, oh yes. Yes, I just love it. You know, every single time I have, and it's always after a pause that I get an answer, because I really do feel that you took the time to think what has impacted me the most, what still impacts me now. And that always happens with my guests. It's a, you know, this is something I really want to land. And I got chills, that landed for me. Because you are right. I think many of us, especially our generation, have somewhat sat back on the laurels of, oh, I have my MBA, or, you know, if you have your PhD or whatever. And now we're actually seeing where technology is disrupting that context.
Right.
And similarly in the movement with who is at the top, who is this leader, and what is it that is their value system, what is the ethos of their leadership, that is shifting more rapidly now that we have had a pandemic experience. You know, the model of work is changing, and we do have to be open and curious enough to access what we need to thrive and to survive, really.
Exactly.
Right? So this has been great, Nadeen. I've learned a lot.
I love chatting with you, Stacey. Thanks for the invitation again.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for sharing so many insights with our community. And ladies, if you're listening, I look forward to hearing you on another episode of the Balanced Lady Boss Show.
Woo-hoo. Take care, Stacey. Take care, ladies. Bye.